What's up, everybody? Hope you're having a good one so far. What we're talking about today is my thoughts on President Biden. And I know he's only been in office now for about 5 months, give or take, but I still thought it was a pretty fun video to go through. So I understand whoever the current president might be, in this case it's Biden, chances are he's always going to face criticism from people on the other side, whereas on the contrary, chances are he'll always get the positive praise from people that are on his side. And it's very rare when people from different sides sort of switch in regards to certain talking points or certain events, right? Chances are, if you're against the president, you'll always be against them. And if you're for the president, you'll always be for them. But moving on, the reason why I'm making the video is because there were a lot of people on the left that never gave Trump a fair shake. Even when he was first elected, they thought he was public enemy number one right from the very start. And they took words out of context, they put words in his mouth, they just criticized him any way they could. So they were on the offensive. And, well, now Trump's gone and Joe Biden's the president. He's the commander-in-chief. So now the same people that criticized Trump for their various reasons, now it's time for them to get a taste of their own medicine. Now you get to be on the defensive because it's time for us to criticize Joe Biden. So what I'm going to say now is, I'm not going to be like some of these other people that you might find online where they're on the right, so it's only right that they criticize someone on the left because they're on the left. I try and walk things out a little bit more. I try to be a little more reasonable and rational. I give you my take, and I try to walk it out in a way that you can understand. That way I'm not speaking in dog whistle or something like that, right? So if you're looking for someone that's just going to slam dunk on Democrats because they're Democrats, probably you can just click off the video. You can go click on one of those other people's videos. If you're someone who wants a little more of a rational conversation, hey, I'm happy to have you stick around. So what I'm going to go through, and by the way, my laptop's over here. That's why I keep looking off screen, on my little camera right here. But I'm on this website. It's just on the issues, and it's got Joe Biden's stances on various on various issues, right? On the issues. That's where it gets the name from. So I'm just going to go through some of them. I'm going to do my best to keep the video short. Let's just walk through some of the stances that Joe Biden has, maybe even some laws or policies that have been enacted, and I'll give you my take on it. So one of the first things is the economy, really in no particular order. So obviously we had an economic shutdown pretty much about a year ago, or over a year ago, and we forced people to sit at home. And now people are on unemployment, and people got some various rounds of stimmy checks and stuff like that. But the economy is really not doing good at all. We're starting to see inflation creep in, and you can argue if those things are something that you can pin on the previous administration, but regardless of your take on that, Biden is the president now, and no matter who the president is, they're always going to get criticized for it. That's just how American politics works. If it's like that in other countries too, let me know if you're tuning in. But whoever the president is, they are always going to get blamed for the current problems. But my big take with Biden, my big criticism in regards to him and the economy is he refuses to get out of the way. And what I mean by that is really government in general, even if it's a state and local government, they're not letting people make their own decisions on their own behalf. So if they have it set up, they're sitting on like a golden goose egg. We had millions of people out of work because the government forced them out of work. They said you have to stay home. So all they have to do is flip a switch, and you're going to have a ton of people that start going back to work if you allow businesses to run the way they want to, right? Run a way that they see fit. Let people make their own decisions based on their health. Although I would argue that people are going to look at bringing home an income as more important than potentially contracting a virus that maybe they've been vaccinated for, or maybe they wear a mask, whatever it is, or maybe they're not really that concerned about it. But the point I'm trying to make is, the more the government gets involved with the economy, especially right now, the more it's just going to kind of continue down this sort of muddy path. Like, it's really not any groundbreaking news. You're not hearing these good reports on like job reports and stuff like that. So that's really my gripe on Biden in regards to the economy, is he refuses to get out of the way. He thinks that the government can solve everyone's problems. But in my opinion, it just makes everything twice as bad, if not even more bad. So if he continues to stay in the way of the government, or stay in the way of the economy rather, it's going to continue down this path. You're going to keep seeing prices rise because more and more people are staying home, not working, more money competing for less products, yada, yada, yada. So kind of took a long time on that one, but there's some other things as well. You got his stance on civil rights, and before you click off and you're like, oh my God, someone on the right doesn't agree with civil rights. No, it's nothing like that. But just certain things, like I don't agree with all the race baiting and stuff like that, the mischaracterization of individuals, because it's just politically convenient to oust them as racist or stuff like that. Like, that's really my big gripe with Democrats in general, is they just slander anyone as a racist that they disagree with. And the term racist is just so overused now, it has no weight in my opinion. Like, it used to actually mean something. Now everyone just gets called it. So again, it takes away from legitimate racists or racism, but it's just a political term that's getting tossed around for political gain. Just my take. But there's other things too. Biden, they reversed the ban on transgender individuals serving in the military. This is something that I think deserves much more attention. I think too many people look at it on a superficial level and they just say, oh, you don't want transgender people in the military, you are a bigot. But when I look at it, I say, okay, I'm told that trans people are more susceptible to depression and anxiety and even self-ending. And something you need to ask yourself is it wise to put them in a potential stressful situation, whether it's boot camp, whether it's them actually going to war, right? Let's say, I know we're at a time of peace right now. America, at least. I know rockets are getting fired left and right between Israel and Palestine, but America, for the most part, is relatively peaceful right now. We're not doing all these big operations unless it's like special operations overseas. But is it wise to put someone who is allegedly more susceptible to depression in a stressful situation with a firearm? Is that wise? Well, comment down below if you are kind of understand what I'm saying, even if you still disagree. But that's my take on why I think that particular talking point, transgender individuals in the military, I think that deserves much more spotlight. I don't think people should just write others off as bigots because they don't want trans people in the military. Just my take. And I already covered my take on Biden, race baiting and stuff like that, like saying America is systemically racist and we're still systemically racist, police is systemically racist, upholds white supremacy. I just don't agree with all that, because he was supposed to be the guy that brings us all together, right? Unity. And that just divides people even more, It just reaffirms these lies, essentially, that America is still this systemically racist country. I can't deny that it was racist years ago, back when we had slavery and Jim Crow and things like that. But to try and say that we're still racist, I think you're misleading people for political gain, and you're just hurting those individuals in the long run, because, well, they're buying into your garbage and you don't do anything to help them. You just get their vote. That's my take on that. You do nothing to help them. You just tell them there's no way out, so you have to vote for Democrat. And once they do, you say, okay, yay, thanks for putting me in. Just my 2 cents. So that's my take on the race baiting stuff and all that. Corporations, obviously, there's always going to be a talking point. They don't pay taxes and stuff like that. So obviously, they're floating around the idea of taking away the Trump tax cuts, which is interesting, because if you're going to take away all of the Trump tax cuts, something you need to ask yourself is, well, what part of it are you going to take away? Are you just taking away what did the Trump tax cuts do? It lowered the corporate tax rate. What was it, from 39% or something like that? Lowered it to, was it 21? Something regarding that. I don't have the exact numbers right here. But it lowered corporate tax rates. So that's where they said, well, it benefited rich people, it exploited poorer people. But the other part of the Trump tax cuts was it lowered the marginal tax rates for individual citizens. Whether it was like 12 to 10%, what would we do, from 23 to 21%, right? Stuff like that. So if you're going to take that away, well, that's actually going to hurt those poor individuals, or just middle class or upper middle class individuals. So that's something that I need more clarification on. If you want to take it away from the corporations, I don't agree with it, but that's at least a stance. But if you're going to repeal the whole Trump tax cut, well, you're actually going to wind up taxing poorer people more, right? Like, it's not going to be that whole thing, if you make less than 400K, your taxes aren't going up. You remove every bit of the Trump tax cuts, our taxes will go up, even if you make under 400K. But the other thing is I don't know if Biden just is like too stupid to understand. I know he's in a way that I'm not trying to mock him. I know he's not all there, and even if you're someone on the left, you got to acknowledge he's not all there. All right, he's old. He's losing his bearings if they're not already lost. So maybe he doesn't fully understand it anymore. But in regards to taxes going up and people talking about, well, the rich got to pay their fair share, instead of spending a ton of time talking about, well, we need to raise their taxes because they don't pay anything in taxes now, stop looking at the marginal tax rate. Look at the effective tax rate. So rather than saying, well, instead of paying 30%, now you have to pay 70%, no, just get rid of the deductions, right? People get to write off some of their income as well. We invested it. We reinvested in the company. We had asset buildings. They were losing value, so depreciation, so we get to write this off. Just take that away, and then you don't need to necessarily raise their tax rates. But by taking away their ability to deduct everything, well, now they'll have to pay, whatever the tax rate is now. What is it, 21%? Or whatever it would be. That's just kind of an outlier. But I think it's important for a lot of people to understand, like, stop talking about taxing the rich. Just get rid of the deductions, and then they'll start paying some more taxes. Just my 2 cents. But moving on, I don't need to necessarily cover a whole lot more because they really haven't done a whole lot just yet. And what I mean by that is I think the administration is sitting on its hands a little bit. And the reason for that is they're still trying to see what bills would have a likelihood of getting passed if they were to put it onto the Senate floor. And I believe, this is just my opinion, they're saving a lot of the potential bills that they can pass for when it's closer to the 2022 midterms. Because right now, they're really kind of a lame duck administration. All you really have is a guy that doesn't send mean tweets out anymore, and everyone says, yay, the world is saved. That's really it. Nothing has really changed. Obviously, the economy, you can argue, things like that, I get. But, other than that, really not a whole lot else. So I think they're waiting to dump a bunch of bills that have a high likelihood of getting passed closer to the midterm election, the 2022 midterms. So that way, people that are thinking about voting for Biden again, and not just Biden, because he's obviously not up for re-election, but Democratic senators, or maybe people that are kind of losing their hope in Democrats, if they see this big swath of bills get passed, let's say a few months out from the 2022 midterms, then the administration gets to say, hey, if you elect more Democrats, you're going to see a whole lot more of this. It'll kind of restore faith. That's just my opinion on that. You can let me know your thoughts in regards to the 2022 midterms if the administration is purposely sitting on bills so that way they can increase hope, for the future. So that's my take on Biden so far in the first 5 months. I don't think he's doing a very good job, but I don't think he's doing a poor job just because he's a Democrat. I think just because his particular policies don't work. I think the bigger the government, the more ineffective and inefficient it is. I think you got to let people make their own decisions for themselves, allow the free market to really get things going once again, and that's going to help people prosper economically. And my take is if people begin to prosper economically, I think you're going to have a more positive outlook on other things as well. Because the biggest thing is, hey, if someone's got to worry about whether they have a roof over their head, whether the electricity is going to be on, whether the water is going to be running, if they have to worry about that, chances are they're going to be ticked off on a lot of other things. But if that's all safe and secure, I think more people are going to be much more open to having some honest dialogue because they're not going to feel like their back's up against the wall. So again, let me know your thoughts on Biden's presidency so far. You think he's doing a nice job? You think he's doing a poor job? What do you think is going to happen for the 2022 midterms? It's going to be a pretty interesting build-up moving forward. But listen, I appreciate you checking out the video. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope to see you again sometime soon.